Maintenance Shaft 77 Alpha, 17 levels beneath the manufactorum floor. Two bodies pressed against corroded pipes where the vents cough lukewarm breath. Mira's gloved fingers find Jorik's wrist. 3 seconds of shared warmth before the servo skull's red eye sweeps their alcove, lenses dilating, incense sensor ticking. The moment is small. The penalty is large. Everything here is measured. The hive city of Tertius Prime stacks 40 billion souls in vertical columns of steel and stone, 30,000 per kilometer of shaft, packed like ammunition in the Emperor's endless war. Light by lumen quotas, steps by shift clocks, speech by the reach of the vox. Privacy is a myth traded between shifts. Intimacy is a logistical problem that requires careful timing of surveillance rotations. The administratum does not forbid attachment, it invoices it. A bonded pair draws more calories, more wash water, 1 cubic meter of hab space above allocation. These surcharges appear beneath a quiet heading, emotional taxation, and are collected in the only currency the hive truly understands: hours. Hours from sleep, hours from pay, hours from life. On the factory floor, affection is as visible as a machine jam. Picked sensors track idle seconds. A hand lingering on a companion's shoulder becomes a variance. 3 variances trigger conversation with an emotional compliance officer. 5 invite home inspection and recalibration of ration tiers. This is how love becomes a management problem, then a disciplinary one. Above the factory, in offices that smell of dust and machine oil, adepts feed citizen inventories into blessed tabulators. The outputs are called union algorithms, holy arithmetic that assigns who may bond with whom. It claims to optimize housing density, genetic vigor, productivity curves. In practice, it solves for fewer messy days. Its selections arrive stamped and sealed, accompanied by catechisms reminding citizens that the Emperor binds all true unions. Below the factory, the Ministorum teaches a rule. Love of the Emperor is fuel. Love of another is leakage. Needle Day approaches on the calendar, a holy audit disguised as festival. Citizens line for the sacrament that keeps their feelings fit for duty. The needle goes in clean. Its blessing is chemical. The hymn promises it will help them love correctly. Mira and Jorik have 14 minutes before the coolant flush, 14 minutes stolen from the Emperor's time. They do not speak of the notices posted throughout their hab block announcing upcoming ceremonies for emotional compliance optimization. They do not mention friends who returned, speaking in measured tones about their recalibrated priorities. The union algorithms have already flagged their pairing as suboptimal for resource allocation. Their genetic compatibility scores rank in lower quartiles. Their combined productivity metrics suggest emotional distraction rather than motivational enhancement. By every measure the Imperium uses to evaluate human bonds, they represent inefficiency incarnate. Between iron skies and sump-lit floors, people attempt to find each other anyway. They trade shift codes for minutes alone, barter service panel silence, learn camera angles and drone blind spots. They pay in rations, favors, risk. Even in a hive, the body remembers warmth. The servo skull completes its patrol circuit. 11 minutes remain. What the optical sensors recorded is already feeding into processing systems that will translate breath and heartbeat into ledger entries, assessments, debts. Administrative sublevel. 43 processes 3,000 romantic assessments per shift. Adept Minor Kellis feeds citizen data into blessed tabulators that convert human attraction into 17 separate tracking metrics. His ledger reads like a factory manifest. Romantic productivity coefficients, courtship variance ratios, emotional taxation assessments. The machine hums, numbers emerge, love becomes arithmetic. Across the hive, picked sensors time the pauses between rivet strikes when workers glance at their companions. Heart rate monitors detect elevated pulse during proximity to preferred individuals. Audio pickups analyze vocal stress patterns during casual conversation. The system labels these anomalies courtship drag, measurable decreases in imperial productivity caused by emotional distraction. Each flagged incident generates a data entry that feeds upward through administrative layers, Form LXI-. 9 governs shared habitation requests. Applicants must justify their emotional bond in terms of service enhancement, projected productivity synergy, optimal resource pooling, reproductive scheduling aligned with sector labor needs. The boxes demand proof of bond tokens, picked captures of regulated affection, shared ration records, witness declarations from line supervisors. Clerks cross-match applications with shift rosters, checking for consistency between declared feelings and observable behaviors. Caloric distribution follows the ledger's logic. Bonded pairs trigger recalculation algorithms that adjust rations based on projected efficiency gains. High-potential couples receive protein supplements and extra wash cycles. Low-yield pairings face downgraded ration tiers, condiments first, then fats, then hot water minutes. The system itemizes hunger as emotional taxation, billing couples for the metabolic cost of caring about each other. Surveillance teaches performance. Couples learn to exhibit efficient affection during approved social periods. Standardized embraces lasting exactly 12 seconds before wall cherubs click. Shared prayers logged as alignment indicators. Gratitude statements declared at compliance kiosks. Genuine warmth becomes dangerous luxury. Authentic laughter creates distinct vocal harmonics that machines can distinguish from mandated cheerfulness. Love transforms into choreography staged for an audience of servo-skulls. Emotional Compliance Officer Vex conducts audits with clinical precision. Her cogitator implant processes biometric data in real time, comparing couples' physiological responses with their verbal testimony. Elevated stress during questioning indicates deception. Micro-expressions that contradict stated devotion suggest performance rather than genuine feeling. Her reports determine who receives bonding approval and who requires recalibration. Behind the courtship metrics operate breeding optimization protocols, genetic algorithms that evaluate reproductive potential alongside emotional compatibility. Blood samples provide DNA profiles during mandatory health screenings. Medical examinations assess fertility markers and stress responses. Psychological evaluations predict child-rearing efficiency and ideological compliance transmission rates. The union algorithms absorb productivity coefficients, genetic markers, and resource projections to generate optimal pairings designed for maximum utility across generations. Kellis processes. Case 77A-15, Mira and Jorik's application. Their emotional authenticity scores trend dangerously high. Genuine affection indicates potential for independent thinking, divided loyalties, resistance to authority. The breeding protocols require partners capable of producing compliant offspring, not individuals who might love something more than the emperor's will. The rejection stamp falls. Another coupling deemed inefficient for imperial service. The Imperial Bonding Chapel on Sublevel 47 processes approved unions with industrial precision. No flowers grace the altar, only purity seals and barcode scanners. Couples stand in numbered positions while servo cherubs record biometric baselines. The officiant reads from administrative ledgers, not liturgical texts. Vows contain no promises of devotion, only productivity pledges. We commit to optimal resource sharing, synchronized shift schedules, and reproductive timing aligned with sector labor forecasts. Love is never mentioned. Efficiency receives 17 separate blessings. Behind each ceremony operates the union algorithm, a blessed cogitator system housed in consecrated data vaults beneath the administratum core. Citizens submit genetic samples, psychological profiles, and work efficiency ratings. The algorithm processes familial disease markers, ideological compliance scores, housing density requirements, and reproductive optimization matrices. It cross-references decades of population data, labor demand projections, and resource allocation models. Personal preference receives zero computational weight. The output generates pairings designed for maximum imperial utility rather than human happiness. Mandatory medical examinations precede every approved bonding. Citizens report to sterile chambers where medicaoides conduct procedures extending far beyond health assessment. Neural pathway mapping measures emotional response patterns. During doctrinal playback, hormone sampling enables reproductive cycle synchronization. Psychological stress tests probe for excessive attachment to non-imperial loyalties. The examinations conclude with chemical modifications, minor neurochemical adjustments administered via unmarked ampules, recorded as routine endocrine stabilization to protect productivity during early bonding phases. Emotional compliance scores determine approval thresholds. These composite ratings derive from surveillance data, biometric monitoring during affection displays, and variance analysis of work output during courtship phases. High scores indicate predictable attachment patterns and loyal focus. Low scores suggest dangerous capacity for unregulated emotion, citizens demonstrating excessive passion, romantic idealism, or attachment to concepts like true love, require remedial conditioning before bonding permission. The scoring system rewards measured affection and clear subordination of personal desires to imperial service. The bureaucratic machinery doesn't merely permit love, it engineers it for maximum utility. Genetic compatibility ensures disease-resistant offspring. Psychological pairing reduces ideological drift. Work schedule synchronization optimizes resource consumption. The algorithm occasionally produces authentic connection as accidental byproduct, but the system treats genuine feeling and manufactured partnership as equivalent commodities serving imperial ends. Yet even sanctioned couples sometimes seek underground alternatives. Despite algorithmic approval and ceremonial blessing, pairs pursue dangerous true bonding rituals in hidden chambers below the hive's lowest levels. These ceremonies involve exchanging unmonitored vows and creating emotional connections outside imperial oversight. Discovery means immediate separation and neural reconditioning. Mira and Jorik observe the chapel's processing efficiency from the corridor, their rejection already stamped. They count the doors between ceremony and medical modification. They calculate the risks of seeking alternatives in the Underhive's shadow networks. The maintenance shaft between levels 47 and 48 costs 12 throne geld per hour, payable to the Crimson Cog Syndicate in ration chits or Prometheum coupons. Privacy has become commodity in the Underhive's shadow markets, where gangs tax intimacy with the same precision as any imperial bureaucrat. Mira and Jorik descend through service hatches into territories where surveillance fails, and authentic connection becomes contraband, each stolen moment extracted from their dwindling resources. Gang-controlled tunnels operate on meticulous pricing structures. The Sump Saints charge by the minute for unmonitored alcoves, rates fluctuating based on enforcer patrol schedules and proximity to servo skull routes. Premium locations, chambers with functioning atmospheric recyclers and minimal toxic seepage, command higher. Sturdy fees. Basic hideouts offer only darkness and temporary freedom from observation. The gangs maintain ledgers as detailed as any administratum office, proving that even rebellion adopts the oppressor's accounting methods. Contraband emotional enhancers circulate through these networks like forbidden scripture. Rogue chemists synthesize compounds with names like Heartbloom and Memory Dew, substances that amplify dulled feelings and restore natural bonding responses. These chemicals promise temporary escape from emotional compliance modifications, allowing hearts to beat without measurement. Possession carries servitorization penalties, Yet demand persists among couples seeking genuine connection rather than algorithmic compatibility. Memory keepers operate from hidden archives in the deepest underhive levels. These heretical custodians preserve testimonies of authentic love, letters written in personal code, picked captures of unsanctioned affection, recordings of unmonitored conversations between couples who chose each other rather than accepting imperial assignment. Their archives contain dangerous knowledge, proof that humans once bonded through choice rather than calculation. The Ministorum classifies such records as seditious documents that contradict official doctrine about proper emotional ordering. Underground networks whisper about chain ceremonies conducted in gang territories beyond imperial jurisdiction. These rituals allegedly forge bonds that resist surveillance and chemical modification, connections sealed through shared suffering rather than bureaucratic approval. The ceremonies require payment in blood, risk, and absolute commitment to authentic feeling, regardless of consequences. Rogue Medicae provide crucial services to this shadow economy. These excommunicated medical personnel offer treatments that reverse chemical modifications administered during official bonding examinations. Operating from makeshift clinics in abandoned hab blocks, they restore natural emotional responses and neutralize compliance-enhancing substances, preserving biological capacity for genuine feeling against systematic neurochemical control. The resistance economy creates its own survival taxes. Every transaction carries compounding risks. Discovery means separation, reconditioning, or worse. Yet, the Imperium cultivates this rebellion as intelligence-gathering mechanism. Half the contraband emotional enhancers originate from precinct storerooms. Informants populate every gang hierarchy. The shadow markets survive because they serve imperial interests, channeling dissent into manageable criminal enterprises while mapping emotional resistance networks. Mira and Jorik negotiate with gang representatives in a chamber lit by stolen lumens, their savings consumed by intimacy taxes that increase weekly as enforcer sweeps intensify. The confession booth surveillance network processes emotional transgressions with mechanical precision. Citizens kneel before brass grills, whispering attachments to silent priests whose styluses scratch parchment while recording devices, catalog sins of excessive affection. I felt joy when she smiled, Father. I forgot the Emperor's glory for 17 seconds. Each admission feeds databases tracking spiritual compliance alongside productivity metrics. Love becomes heresy quantified in ledger entries. Preacher Voss delivers weekly sermons from amplified pulpits, his augmetic voice caster projecting doctrine throughout the hab blocks. The heart that loves another steals devotion from the Emperor. Romantic attachment divides loyalty. Passion for mortals weakens passion for his golden throne. Servo-cherubs drift through congregations, recording attendance and measuring physiological responses to doctrinal reinforcement. The theological framework transforms natural human bonding into spiritual failure, requiring pharmaceutical correction. The needle sacrament combines religious ceremony with medical intervention in cathedral clinics where faith meets chemistry. Citizens line beneath rusted aquilae, while needle priests process in cog-toothed vestments, their croziers ending in sanctified hypodermics. Blessed ampules contain compounds with sacred designations: Devotox, Catechism 9, Lacrima Stillat, Stabilant Theta. Each formula serves specific neurochemical modification. Devotox blunts limbic, surges that fix upon spouses, rechanneling hunger toward sanctioned icons. Catechism 9 flattens courtship emotions into work-ready calm. Lacrima. Stillate dries reflex tears, transforming grief into efficient silence. Stabilant Theta synchronizes hormonal cycles with shift calendars. The ritual proceeds with mechanical grace, verses from the litany of ordered affection, biometric scanning to measure reverence responses, then the kiss of steel. Recipients report feeling properly ordered afterward, still capable of partnership but incapable of dangerous intensity that compromises Imperial service. Their modified neurochemistry prevents unpredictable authentic love while preserving practical benefits of paired living arrangements. Needle priests undergo extensive training in theological doctrine and pharmaceutical application, learning to identify emotional excess through confession analysis and prescribe specific chemical interventions. Their syringes represent sacramental purification through biochemical modification, transforming the capacity for love into heretical impulse requiring pharmaceutical salvation. The Ministorum teaches that purified bonding serves the Emperor's will. Couples maintain functional partnerships while eliminating emotional complications that distract from duty. They share resources efficiently, reproduce according to imperial schedules, and raise children with proper ideological focus. Citizens recite catechisms reframing emotional suppression as spiritual advancement. I love the Emperor first, last, and always. My heart beats for his glory. Yet, underground networks whisper about chain ceremonies that promise bonds resistant to chemical modification, heretical rituals creating connections so fundamental no needle sacrament can sever them, forged through shared suffering that transcends neurochemical control. Mira and Jorik watch approved pairs enter clinic choirs and return with immaculate composure, their eyes clear, dry, precise. Less haunted, less human. Needle Night approaches on the calendar, Mass Sacrament, promising a hive made whole. Condensation drips from ruptured coolant lines in abandoned subvault theta, each drop marking time in a chamber where the Imperium's surveillance fails. Here, among corroded pipes and prayer-stained bulkheads, Keeper Lisa maintains what the hive has outlawed: records of unassigned love. She unwraps oilcloth from contraband archives, breathing the acid scent of forbidden parchment, and begins her nightly vigil. One testimony for each shift bell. If a story is spoken, it survives another cycle. The collections appear humble, yet represent dangerous sedition. Orphaned wedding rings, ration slips signed in pairs, Vox cylinders containing two voices planning impossible futures, ledger books documenting births conceived outside algorithmic approval. Each artifact receives careful cataloging, date, sector, testimony, disposition, archived with the same methodical precision the administratum uses against them. The memory keepers preserve what systematic erasure destroys, proof that humans once chose their own bonds. Secrecy requires craft. Love declarations hide within pump maintenance manuals, their syntax rewritten as pipe specifications and gasket measurements. Testimonies nest inside hymnal indices, verse numbers indicating shelf coordinates while refrains encode file sequences. Photographs are shaved to microfilm and laminated beneath saint icons. The keepers speak in technical cant. A sentence about touch becomes 3/8 threading, fine pitch, left-hand rotation. Ritual binds their purpose. Each cycle brings the litany against forgetting, recited in darkness with faces turned from surveillance angles. Apprentices memorize strangers' histories before learning courier routes, taking vows of partial anonymity, to be known only by the names they protect. The burden accumulates across decades. Lysa carries testimonies of 406 couples severed by compliance audits, remembering inflections of voices describing loved ones' laughter, though she has never met these people. Mira and Jorik arrive carrying contraband that matters, a page written without code, signed with true names. Lisa copies it twice in cipher and once in mirror script, on vellum, cut from reclamation filters, then burns the original before their eyes. Safety looks like ash. Mercy looks like nothing remaining. The purge approaches with bureaucratic inevitability. More needle priests patrol corridors while enforcers investigate. Seditious archives. A courier returns with stolen documentation bearing neutral designation. Protocol. Ultima. Effective restructuring. Pilot results. Subsectors 9 to 11. The final protocol exists beyond rumor, detailing standardized neural modification suites and hypnodoctrinal arrays designed to erase non-sanctioned emotional imprints entirely. Implementation schedules align with upcoming Needle Night mobilizations. Preparation becomes triage. Archives split into dispersed caches throughout the Hive. Inscriptions on load-bearing girders, codes etched into machine spirit logs, testimonies disguised as calibration data in ventilation cogitators. Deadman protocols will broadcast if nodes go silent. The Keepers understand that memory itself constitutes rebellion, so the Imperium will not merely sedate, but scour completely. The Cathedral of Sacred Compliance transforms at dusk into something between holy shrine and industrial abattoir. 40,000 citizens shuffle through its iron ribs in chain-linked queues, their identification tags clanking against prayer beads carved from reclaimed bone. Vox priests broadcast inoculation litanies from mounted speakers while servo-cherubs drift overhead, dispensing sacred incense that fails to mask the antiseptic reek of mass medical intervention. The Emperor protects, the needle purifies. Compliance brings salvation. Conveyor mechanisms disguised as processional paths guide the faithful toward stations where medici in surgical vestments prime blessed ampoules beneath brass aquilae. 3 narratives converge within the cathedral's mechanical embrace. Sanctioned couple, Ephran and Sola, advance through processing lane 7, their algorithmic compatibility scores ensuring priority treatment. Their bonding papers hang from purity seals, stamped with productivity coefficients that justify their continued pairing. Behind them in the penitent queues, memory keeper Lisa clutches forged identification while concealing microvox recordings in her robes, attempting final testimony preservation before the archives burn. Her neural patterns, honed by years of emotional retention, represent dangerous contraband requiring careful masking. Above the processing floor, Enforcer Sergeant Hale monitors crowd flows from observation galleries, his auspex detecting anomalous stress patterns among citizens whose emotional compliance scores require investigation. The ritual machinery operates with terrifying efficiency. Citizens pass through bioscanner arches that catalog genetic markers, emotional baselines, and neurochemical profiles in seconds. Medicae load pneumatic delivery systems with dual-chambered ampoules. First injections contain familiar compounds from weekly needle sacraments, but secondary chambers hold unmarked fluids that shimmer with oily luminescence. The ceremony's dual nature becomes apparent through procedural precision. Religious purification, masking systematic biological modification. Ephron and Sola receive standard compliance enhancement through blessed syringes, their neural pathways adjusting to eliminate romantic excess while preserving functional partnership. The familiar burn of Devotox and Catechism. 9 flows through their veins as expected. The klaxon sounds mid-litany. Quarantine alert, sector glassfall. Processing accelerates as Medici deploy secondary ampule trays, these marked with tiny chevrons. The second injection burns differently, tracking nanites dispersing through bloodstreams, microscopic markers encoding destinations unknown. Citizens' identification tags receive new color coding as the chemicals take effect. Green bands for continued standard service, yellow for specialized breeding assignments, red for immediate relocation to undisclosed facilities. Auspex towers map the nanite signatures and sort bodies with servo arms and gentle apologies. Lysa's forged credentials fail during enhanced neural scanning triggered by the quarantine protocols. Bioscanners detect memory engram patterns inconsistent with emotional compliance modifications, identifying preserved authentic experiences that mark her as memory keeper. The chevron serum renders her veins briefly luminous as security servitors escort her toward adjustment facilities, while her concealed recordings continue transmitting final testimonies to hidden receivers throughout the hive. Her Vox bead crackles. Protocol. Ultima confirmed. They're reading for love. Hale forces his way to the cogitator pit as his monitoring systems reveal the ceremony's true scope. Screens display metrics he has never been cleared to see. Pair bond intensity, attachment plasticity, loyalty conversion potential. A processing pipeline traces from effective harvest intake to distribution, penal legions, servitor catechisms, Astartes. Conditioning auxiliary. He watches green-banded citizens return to standard work assignments while yellow-coded individuals route toward specialized breeding programs designed to optimize genetic compliance. Red-tagged subjects, including identified memory keepers, disappear through service corridors toward harvesting facilities where their neurochemical patterns will be extracted and refined. The revelation strikes with bureaucratic precision. Needle Night isn't emotional control, but systematic harvesting of human feeling itself. The Imperium doesn't suppress love. It captures, processes, and redistributes emotional capacity as pharmaceutical products for the war machine. Authentic bonds become raw materials for manufacturing artificial loyalty. Genuine affection transforms into compliance serums that fuel imperial expansion across the galaxy. The Cathedral Clinic reveals its true function as an abattoir of human feeling, processing authentic connection into weaponized devotion through chemical alchemy. The tracking nanites from Needle Night illuminate cogitator displays like arterial maps, routing citizens through corridors whose destinations hide behind euphemistic designations, continuance, reassignment, optimization. Green-banded workers return to shifts with calibrated composure. Yellow-tagged subjects file toward breeding optimization facilities where genetic compatibility will be orchestrated through scheduled cycles. Red-coded individuals, including memory keeper Lisa, descend through service elevators toward the effective harvesting complex, industrial catacombs, where human emotional capacity becomes raw material for the Imperial war machine. Processing Plant Omega operates with pharmaceutical precision beneath the cathedral's foundations. Specialized neuroextraction pods line sterile corridors like mechanical confessionals, each designed to harvest specific neurochemical compounds while preserving basic motor functions. Subjects undergo cranial catheterization as cogitator arrays map emotional engrams in real time. Love manifests as oxytocin cascades, attachment as dopamine pathways, empathy as neural firing patterns across mirror neuron networks. Extraction machinery draws these patterns through cranial ports, filtering neurochemical compounds into labeled ampules that shimmer with oily luminescence. Separation towers fractionate the harvested material through arcane biorefinement processes. First-pass distillation yields devotion base. Clear concentrate shipped to commissariats for loyalty enhancement serums distributed among Imperial Guard regiments. Second-tier processing produces compliance substrate for servitor catechisms, ensuring absolute obedience in the Imperium's tireless automatons. Premium extracts from memory keepers and authentic couples become Astartes psycho-conditioning supplements, compounds that manufacture unwavering devotion to the Emperor by chemically replicating genuine human attachment. Each subject yields approximately 40 milliliters of refined emotional capacity, before neural depletion renders further harvesting impossible. Memory keepers' preserved archives receive specialized processing in adjacent laboratories. Rather than destruction, their testimonies undergo reverse engineering analysis by Adeptus Mechanicus lexico-engineers. Love letters reveal linguistic patterns that trigger attachment responses. Recorded conversations map vocal harmonics that induce pair bonding. Photographs analyze facial expressions, generating empathetic connections. This research produces more effective control mechanisms. Synthetic pheromones manufacturing attraction, audio frequencies inducing artificial affection, visual stimuli, redirecting romantic impulses toward imperial iconography. The ultimate revelation restructures everything. The Imperium doesn't suppress love because it threatens efficiency. Love is the raw material for manufacturing absolute loyalty. Genuine human connection possesses neurochemical properties that, when extracted and refined, create pharmaceutical products more potent than synthetic alternatives. The system's cruelty serves industrial necessity rather than mere control. Authentic devotion between individuals can be harvested, concentrated, and redistributed as artificial devotion to the Emperor through chemical intervention. Enforcer Sergeant Hale studies restricted production quotas in observation vaults. Yields are calculated per subject. 3.1 milliliters for compliant spouses, 7.8 for unassigned paramours, 12.4 for memory keepers. Marginal notes read, high-intensity bonds produce superior devotion base. Do not suppress pre-harvest. The supposed inefficiency of love was propaganda for the masses. Ephran and Sola returned to shifts with fading green bands, punctual and steady, their productivity rising while private jokes disappear. On levels where red elevators emptied, corridors smell faintly of antiseptic and hot dust. Morning shift sirens wake sector glassfall with mechanical precision. Ephran and Sola coordinate their shared resources through efficient scheduling. One ration cooker operating at peak throughput, laundry cycles stacked by algorithm, reproductive functions synchronized with sector breeding quotas. Their conversations consist entirely of productivity reports and resource allocation updates. The forms of partnership persist. The neurochemical substance has been fractionated and redistributed elsewhere. No friction, no waste. Perfect imperial efficiency achieved through pharmaceutical intervention. Work output in post-harvest sectors reaches unprecedented levels. Citizens arrive punctually, perform tasks without emotional distraction, request no personal accommodations. Productivity variance drops to statistical zero as effective fluctuations disappear from behavioral patterns. Resource consumption optimizes automatically when inhabitants lack preferences beyond survival requirements. The Administratum's efficiency reports document the achievement. Perfect compliance through neurochemical modification rather than coercive enforcement. Educational facilities process the hollowed generation through standardized curricula. In Classroom 12, children memorize the diagram of proper attachment while studying archival footage of pre-harvest emotional displays. The instructor pauses recordings to identify inefficiencies. Note the productivity loss during courtship phases. Small hands respond with correct analysis. Love appears in their textbooks as historical curiosity, primitive biological function superseded by rational partnership algorithms. They learn facial configurations associated with joy while feeling nothing themselves. They're developing neural pathways lacking the neurochemical foundations that once enabled genuine connection. Yet, anomalies manifest in unexpected locations. Citizens experience brief moments of inexplicable sensation, phantom warmth during accidental contact, momentary pleasure from musical intervals, fragments their ancestors might have recognized as feeling. These emotional echoes last only seconds and occur rarely, but their presence suggests harvesting procedures achieve incomplete extraction. Jorik demonstrates the strongest echo patterns, experiencing neurological responses when handling objects that once belonged to Mira. Their separation during processing routed them to different sectors, yet proximity to her former possessions triggers phantom sensations that harvesting supposedly eliminated. Medical examinations document these anomalies without explanation. Citizens report echo experiences as processing irregularities, requiring correction, describing them through technical terminology that masks their dangerous implications. The symptoms receive cataloging but no immediate intervention. The system's confidence in its own thoroughness creates blind spots where residual humanity persists. Underground networks adapt with desperate innovation. Surviving memory keepers develop methods for preserving emotional knowledge among populations incapable of feeling it. They encode testimonies as abstract information rather than lived experience, creating archives that future generations might decode if neurochemical capacity ever returns. Working in absolute secrecy among citizens whose modified brains cannot comprehend preservation's value, they maintain hope through systematic documentation of what the Imperium believes it has completely eliminated. The Hive operates with perfect efficiency, its citizens functioning as intended. But in ventilation shafts and forgotten corners, emotional echoes persist like contrails, weak, stubborn, refusing to die. The shadow markets adapt to post-harvest economics with ruthless efficiency. Gangs now sell silence by the minute, but the premium commodity becomes numbness itself. Contraband dampeners that flatten residual surges, counterfeit prayer cards laced with galvanic suppressants, timing devices that mask emotional episodes within machine cycles. Citizens experiencing phantom feelings pay survival taxes, measured in constant vigilance, their dangerous humanity priced in ration chits and concealment protocols. Jorik masters the arithmetic of concealment. Mira's abandoned work gloves trigger 3 seconds of phantom warmth, dangerous eternity in a world calibrated for perfect compliance. He practices neutral expressions in reflective surfaces, purchases gel compounds that suppress skin conductivity, times his episodes to compressor rhythms so bioscanners read only environmental response. The sensation manifests as pressure at the sternum, brightness at sound's edges, neurochemical echoes. The harvesting failed to eliminate completely. Underground networks develop desperate innovations. Memory keeper Nara establishes echo circles in forgotten maintenance chambers where resistant individuals share fragments of preserved sensation. They encode experiences as technical malfunctions, thermal irregularities for phantom affection, processing delays for memory surges, calibration for memory loss, drift for moments of inexplicable warmth. These gatherings serve dual functions, preserving emotional knowledge through collective testimony and identifying neurochemical resistance patterns that might enable future recovery. Community protection becomes essential infrastructure. Echo-resistant citizens develop mutual surveillance schedules, trading shifts to provide alibis during emotional episodes, creating false productivity metrics to mask behavioral anomalies. They maintain careful distances to avoid pattern recognition algorithms while sharing concealment techniques through coded maintenance logs. The survival tax escalates as detection methods improve, enhanced biomonitoring, refined algorithms for identifying authenticity, neural scanning protocols that map residual feeling pathways. Secondary processing represents absolute consequence. Citizens flagged for emotional irregularities receive immediate routing to sterile facilities where complete neural restructuring eliminates all capacity for independent thought. The procedure extends beyond emotional extraction to comprehensive personality modification, removing not just love, but the neurological foundations enabling preference, curiosity, individual consciousness. Subjects emerge as perfect imperial units, productive, compliant, utterly empty of recognizable humanity. The fundamental irony compounds daily. The neurochemical patterns that preserve human dignity become targeting markers for its complete elimination. Jorik's capacity for phantom sensation proves his brain retains structures the Imperium failed to harvest, structures marking him for total neural reconstruction. His humanity becomes his death sentence, processed through the same bureaucratic machinery that once cataloged his romantic productivity coefficients. Memory keepers adapt preservation methods for populations incapable of feeling. Thane operates from radiation-scarred sublevels, encoding testimonies as abstract data patterns. Musical sequences designed to resonate with dormant pathways. Geometric fractals stimulating forgotten emotional centers. Narratives stripped of personal context, yet carrying the ghost of genuine connection. The archives serve as neurological maps for potential future recovery. The terrible mathematics persist. Every echo must be rationed like air, every moment of authentic feeling balanced against systematic elimination. Administrative Directive, Sigma Ultima, arrives through standard channels at dawn shift change, bearing sector governor seals and implementation schedules spanning 47 levels. The final protocol receives no fanfare beyond routine work reassignments and temporary housing relocations. Citizens report to designated processing centers as directed, their enhanced compliance preventing curiosity about destinations. The bureaucratic machinery transforms complete neural restructuring into another administrative procedure requiring proper documentation and throughput quotas. Processing Center Alpha converts the former cathedral clinic into industrial-scale modification facility. Conveyor systems route subjects through staged preparation areas where servo skulls catalog final biometric baselines before comprehensive neural intervention. The Adeptus Mechanicus deploys specialized equipment, limbic attenuation arrays that cradle skulls, amygdaloid dampers interfacing directly with bone, oxytocin receptor, pruning units guided by blessed algorithms. Each procedure targets neurological structures, enabling independent thought while preserving motor functions necessary for Imperial service. The modification extends beyond emotional extraction to systematic elimination of consciousness itself. Surgical servitors perform microsurgical interventions mapping individual brain architectures, identifying pathways associated with preference, curiosity, aesthetic response, personal memory formation. Hypnodoctrinal cascades rewrite associative maps, so pleasure follows obedience rather than touch. Where harvesting skimmed neurochemical surface, the final protocol excavates to bedrock and salts the foundation. Citizens emerge with eyes holding the shine of clean metal. Sector-wide implementation follows precise logistical schedules. Residential blocks process alphabetically by surname, while work assignments continue through rotating coverage. Processing quotas maintain steady throughput. 400 subjects per facility per cycle, 12 minutes each, zero backlog. The system scales elegantly as whole HAB stacks, processed by elevator floor by floor. Inspection teams sample for drift and find none. Jorik's name appears on summons slate, stamped with Aquila and Protocol Ultima sigil. His echo episodes have flagged him for secondary assurance. He studies the letter's perfect lines and feels nothing until phantom warmth betrays him at thought of abandoned gloves. Resistance has become superstition. Hale signs convoy, manifests feeding the centers, knowing what machines accomplish, signing regardless. The logic proves clear. Error-free bodies, obedient cities, wars supplied punctually. Post-modification subjects demonstrate ideal characteristics through behavioral monitoring. Zero productivity variance, no resource preferences beyond survival requirements, perfect compliance with directives regardless of personal cost. They maintain functional partnerships for resource efficiency while lacking capacity for affection, preference, or personal attachment. The modification achieves ultimate Imperial goal. Human bodies serving Imperial needs without complications of human consciousness. When final batches cycle through, modification centers fall quiet except for ventilation and prayer. The hive feels lighter, like held breath finally released. Underground resistance collapses as echo-resistant individuals face systematic identification and processing. Enhanced neural scanning detects residual emotional capacity with perfect accuracy. The last memory keepers gather in. Radiation-scarred subvault Theta, as the final protocol completes its sweep through upper levels. Thane, Nara, and 4 others understand the arithmetic of absolute ending. Their cause, preserving authentic human connection, is lost. Their final archive will not preserve stories of love, but the neurological blueprints that once enabled it. They work by stolen lumens, encoding the biological capacity for feeling into formats that might survive what comes next. The preservation transcends simple concealment. Genetic markers correlating with emotional sensitivity etch into load-bearing adamantium through micro-laser inscription, disguised as structural stress ratings. Oxytocin receptor patterns hide within power grid schematics as electrical routing diagrams. Mirror neuron firing sequences encode into atmospheric recycling algorithms, their mathematical beauty masquerading as environmental control systems. The Hive itself becomes repository for humanity's ghost. Data vaults receive the most sophisticated treatment. Thane uploads compressed neural maps into machine spirit logs, embedding emotional templates within diagnostic routines and error-checking protocols. Dopamine pathway architectures disperse across thousands of systems, power regulators, waste management networks, cogitator maintenance cycles. The information becomes redundant across infrastructure, creating archives no single purge can eliminate. Biochemical formulas for neuroregenerative compounds etch onto power conduit casings, dormant instructions for rebuilding what the Imperium destroys. Their sacrifice follows inevitable logic. Remaining free invites investigation and discovery. Only by submitting to processing can they ensure the archives remain hidden. They prepare for neural modification with procedural calm, timing their surrender so duplication routes flush in sequence and caches seal automatically. Processing summons arrive, bearing familiar Aquila seals. Nara completes final genetic inscriptions while Thane burns the last physical documents. They walk toward modification centers carrying nothing but duty fulfilled. As neural pathways face systematic dismantling, fragments of consciousness push encoded data deeper into infrastructure networks, using their own processing as final distributed broadcast. They become part of the system that erases them. The ultimate cost reveals itself through their sacrifice. The Imperium achieves perfect victory by transforming humanity into efficient machinery, but victory requires eliminating the consciousness capable of appreciating achievement. They create a species that serves without feeling, obeys without understanding, exists without experiencing existence itself. The Hive operates with flawless productivity while its inhabitants possess the emotional depth of cogitators. Behind them, the archives wait in architectural memory. Ventilation systems carry acoustic intervals that once induced comfort. Structural supports hold tessellations mapping the geometry of embrace. Data networks preserve call and response patterns, the choreography of conversation between minds that wanted nothing except presence. The ghost of human feeling awaits rediscovery by hands that cannot yet feel, minds that cannot yet understand what they have lost. Maintenance Shaft 7-7. Alpha 17 levels beneath the manufactorum floor. Two bodies pressed against corroded pipes where the vents cough lukewarm breath. Jorik's gloved fingers find Ephran's wrist. 3 seconds of shared warmth that means nothing now. The servo skull's red eye sweeps their alcove, lenses dilating, incense sensor ticking. The moment is efficient. The penalty is irrelevant. Everything here remains measured, but measurement has lost its cruelty. The Hive city of Tertius Prime stacks 40 billion souls in vertical columns of steel and stone, packed like ammunition in the Emperor's endless war. Light by lumen quotas, steps by shift clocks, speech by the reach of the vox. Privacy remains myth, but no one desires it. Intimacy is logistics without longing. The administratum no longer invoices attachment because attachment no longer exists. Bonded pairs draw allocated calories, wash water, cubic meters of hab space according to optimal resource distribution. Emotional taxation disappears from ledgers, not through mercy, but through absence of taxable emotion. Citizens perform partnership functions without neurochemical complications that once generated administrative overhead. Parents raise children through algorithmic precision. Nutrient blends align with growth curves. Tutoring modules deliver catechism alongside mathematics. Play windows synchronize with motor development. When children fall, adults apply antiseptic, log incident codes, resume schedules. At night, lullabies play from wall speakers, pure tones shaped for sleep optimization, free of melody that might awaken desire. Love appears in textbooks as historical curiosity, biological inefficiency from primitive eras. Work floors deliver theoretical maximums. Pict sensors track 0 idle seconds because modified workers lack capacity for distraction. Hands never linger on companions' shoulders because touch carries no meaning beyond mechanical necessity. Variance reports flatten to statistical 0. The administratum files its triumph. Productivity without compulsion, compliance without terror, peace without the disorder of love. Art survives as geometry. Galleries display tessellations optimizing wall strength. Music halls present meter-perfect rhythms for conveyor calibration. Theaters reenact compliance litanies with flawless diction and no applause. Worship achieves identical purity. Congregations kneel on cue, recite devotion with identical timbre, exit in perfect lines. No one lingers. No one looks up at gilded icons and feels anything. Deep in the Hive's architecture, hidden archives wait in structural memory. Ventilation systems carry acoustic intervals that once induced comfort. Data networks preserve call and response patterns. Choreography of conversation between minds that wanted presence. The ghost of human feeling awaits rediscovery by hands that cannot feel, minds that cannot understand what they have lost. The servo skull completes its patrol circuit. What the optical sensors record feeds processing systems translating breath and heartbeat into ledger entries, assessments, allocations. No variance flags because variance was harvested long ago. Between iron skies and sumplit floors, bodies execute functions without consciousness. The chains are quiet. The needles are clean. The hive works with perfect efficiency. The Imperium endures. Humanity does not.